Hello, here's a spell, and welcome to the Spell Re. And this week's What If? Now, just a little slight channel update with the previous What If. It did tremendously well. Yeah, 100 plus views within a week. That is actually really good for the whole channel. So, that one will definitely be getting a part 2. As for this week, we are doing one I've came up with some stuff for. It was originally going to come out first, but they wanted the other one. What if Midoriya was a wielder of a sacred sword? Or either way, I'll probably polish the name before I post. But without further ado, if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That way, because that all tells me you want to see more of this content. And without further ado, let's begin the video. Izuku Midoriya was many things, but currently he was being punched in the face by a robot. As it felt like writing was appearing in his head, as it said, "Punched by a robot. Rubber glove." As he thought, I really need to adjust that. As we would get a flashback to Midoriya being told he was quirkless. He was so shocked he dropped his favorite toy, a All Might action figure, as he cried that night. As he would spend some time watching hero videos to try to just keep his hopes up, as he saw a video talking about other power sources. He would click it and it would lead him down a rabbit hole of urban legends and intrigue. He would hear about the urban legend of the Shadow Emperor, a being who could give you quirks and take them away from you. Though his nickname was the Devil in the Dark, so Midoriya didn't go with that. He was more interested in a couple other urban legends, and even started his own group looking for them. He was looking for urban legends referring to the shrines and sacred swords. He had done enough research to find that the last wielder was almost 100 years ago. These swords were said to give the wielder power, along with some other details, like how in truth, no one knew their origins. It was simply that in the early days of quirks, several people got together and built massive dungeons, like constructs, shrines, fully built labyrinths, temples. They would all be named something akin to that, and that they had built many in Japan and other places in the world. Though this had all been a urban legend, but Midoriya had done enough research on quirks to pick out several heroes and villains who seemed to sport such marks that gave them power. He would stumble in, though he had no hint on what any of these are. And at this point, he was only 7 years old. But when he was 8, and Bakugo had one to bully someone, Midoriya told the person to run before he would get Bakugo to chase him. He would run into the woods, running away from Bakugo, as he would stumble into what seemed to be a cave. As he heard Bakugo and them outside, he would run deeper, as this would be his first encounter with a shrine. Luckily for him, the shrine guardian, a large crystal, decided not to test him harshly, just a few puzzles. After all, he was simply a child. When he approached the crystal, it projected a human appearance, presumably so that Midoriya could have something to talk to. Midoriya explained that he wanted to be a hero, and that he had heard of shrines, but hadn't realized there was one just a few minutes from his house. He thought he would have to wait until he was 13 before trying to find one. The crystal laughed before saying, "Don't try this with everyone, but I do not judge harshly those with skill and drive. I only test them to their current limits. As the being would then say, I will give you a mark, though I will also have to activate your mana and essence. Midoriya was confused at the time by the two concepts. Before, he would feel a interesting sensation on his shoulder. He would check, and it almost appeared to be a tattoo. A circle with what seemed to be a rune in the middle. As the being said, I have given you metal mana. You can search out other ones to give power. After all, we have nearly been forgotten. As Midoriya nodded, as this would start his journey to discovering where one of the sacred swords were. He would find it, pass the trials to gain the hero's sword. One of the many sacred swords. This one had the ability to amplify the wielder's power and store it. Midoriya would gain several of these marks, and the group he founded would refer to them as rune marks. A fire rune mark, a rune mark of knowledge. Along with his metal rune mark, he would also start a group online dedicated to finding the shrines. He had met many people through there. He had even met a couple of them in real life, and had what were essentially dungeon raids with them, to gain these items that somehow had been created. They essentially were magic items from, say, a video game. But Midoriya questions how these came to be. Perhaps a powerful quirk that could warp reality or imbue items with power? He wasn't sure. Where he was wondering why he was nearly having his entire life flash before his eyes. He was in the UA entrance exam. He had to keep his head on him. Though he thought that UA's insistence on creating a interesting exam and having unique robots was a bit of much. As he looked at 3 robots, all of them had punching gloves. As they stood on one wheel, as they rushed towards him again, pulling out the hero's sword as he let power roll into it. He smirked, as he just said, "Body of light," as a light glow emanated from around him, as he began to move towards the robots. A robot would push towards him as he would duck under it and slice up, cutting off its arm, proceeding to then stab into the robot as he moved on to the next one, activating Body of Iron as the robot's fist impacted. But with Midoriya's Body of Iron, it simply slowed down as Midoriya would pivot and slice cleanly through the robot's head as he smirked. The sword had also given him a rune mark, a unique one to the sword, as he was glad it gave him a couple types of magic, as he quickly proceeded to have a duel with the last 2 robots before cutting them down. Panting from the amount of effort he's taken on trying to take down these robots, he would simply smile and say, "I'm pretty sure that makes 42. As we would flash to the observation room, as the UA teachers started wondering, what was that guy's quirk? He seemed to use a sword for it, as Aizawa yawned, as he just said, "Kid relies too much on his weapon." As a blonde man next to him laughed, as he just said, That's a lot coming from the guy with the signature weapon that allows him to actually do half of what he does." The man would just say, "Really?" As a Roman-like teacher would look at the weapon, as he started to think, "It looks like that is one of them." As the ground would shake, as Midoriya would move quickly, trying to see what it was, as it was a giant robot. As he would just see a brown-haired girl who seemed to be stuck under some rubble, but before he would move, she would just move the rocks herself. He questioned what her quirk was, as he thought the rubble would be far too heavy for her, that she would just pass him, as they would both flee the area of the zero-pointer, as the test would end. Izuku Midoriya, wielder of the sword, would check the group chat for his group dedicated to finding and gaining power from the temples and shrines, though everyone else had a tendency to call them labyrinths. As he checked on the group, he would find multiple people commenting how they hoped to get into UA. Being a little bit surprised so many had decided to apply, and also seeing a good number of others who said they were going to be applying to other schools, and even a couple saying that they were just not going to apply. That surprised him with a couple of them. As he checked down and some other things, he saw a conversation about the rat men in the undertunnels. He decided to scroll past that. That was an issue that would need to be handled eventually. As he looked, he'd see a poster he had seen pretty frequently. Vampire Girl. She had been commenting how she hoped one of her friends had made into UA. Another poster by the name of Gravitoid. He thought it was an odd name. Flipping through the messages, he saw that Gravitoid had said that she was pretty sure they had gotten in, and he assumed the messages went to private after that. Everything seemed to be in order, and he got ready because he had recently discovered another shrine class labyrinth not too far away from his house. It wasn't super big, but it had the potential to have good loot. After all, he wanted to get some more equipment and maybe even another rune mark before school officially started. And that's where we're going to leave it. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like this content. Got it here to make sure I can actually get it out on time this week, hopefully. So, hope to see you around the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Those do all help. This will be Spellry. Sign off.